This is the GAC M8 PHEV, which sits in a very strange corner of the car market because it's a people mover, but it's priced like a luxury SUV, designed like a VIP shuttle, and has a plug-in hybrid power system that suggests that someone, somewhere, has very specific plans for it. But the question is, does it all make sense once you actually live with it? Let's find out. There are two grades available for the M8, and we're in the flagship luxury for this review. But it's a hard car to compare because it's the only people mover, or at least for the moment, that has a plug-in hybrid powertrain. Its nearest rivals when you consider specs and the captain's seats in the middle row is the all-electric LDV MIFA 9 and the Zeekr 009, but they are well over 100 grand. So compared to those, this does offer solid value, but not when pitched next to the flagship Kia Carnival Hybrid, which is around $7,000 more affordable. The features list is extensive though. Think electric front seats with heat and ventilation, electric captain's seats with heat, ventilation and massage functions, 2 sunroofs and a 360-degree view camera system. Other tech includes a 10.1-inch media display, a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster, wireless phone capability, powered rear sliding doors, as well as an 8-speaker Yamaha sound system. But the full specs are in my detailed written review at carsguide.com.au if you need more info. Its design, well, it's certainly out there. It's not too dissimilar to the Lexus LM actually, and it even has a similar vague spindle-like shape in the tallest grille I've ever seen. It's long, it's sharply squared off, and it's not particularly dynamic looking. It does ride on 18-inch Comfort Michelin tires, but it's certainly a people mover that's going to stand out. Let us know in the comments what you think. The interior claws back some design cred though, with its two-tone semi-aniline leather upholstery and lovely little design accents like the rose gold inserts and the suede panels. Overall, it's a design that feels quite well considered and definitely luxurious. There are some cute little design features throughout, like this crystal gear lever, which is actually a bit of a fidget spinner, as well as 2 sunroofs, with the rear fixed panel illuminating with the ambient light. It's quite lovely. However, there are a few things that I'm not a massive fan of. The media display is on the smaller side, especially for a car of this size, and some of the joinery just doesn't line up, which is super annoying once you notice it. More annoying than you'd think. The front row is spacious, and these seats are fairly comfortable on a longer journey because of the heat and ventilation functions. You do miss out on any extendable under thigh support as well as lumbar support for the passenger side, and I am still pretty filthy that you miss out on any type of massage function. In fact, I have felt a bit like a chauffeur this week because even my husband has jumped into those middle seat row because they have the massage function. There's enough storage up front to make this cabin feel neat and tidy, with a good sized glove box and middle console and the usual cup holders. I really like that you get a dedicated phone cradle that also has the wireless charging pad, as well as a hole for any cables that you need to pull through from this big under shelf area, because that's where the USB-A and C port are housed, as well as the 12-volt socket. Unfortunately, the media system isn't the best example I've ever worked with. The screen can be a little bit laggy, the graphics are a bit mid, and the layout's just not super intuitive to use, which is a little bit annoying because most of the functions are buried behind it. For example, to access the heated steering wheel function, you have to go through at least 2 menus. I do like though that you get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and the CarPlay has maintained a steady connection this week. The middle row and the captain's seats are definitely where you want to spend most of your time. They're super comfortable, and I love all the additional functions. You get heat and ventilation as well as massage, which is really amazing. The only issue is that if you want to utilize the footrest, you do have to position the seat as far back as it can go and push the front seats forward a little bit. And even being 168 centimeters tall, it is a bit of a snug fit. So people who are over 6 foot might struggle. You feel like you're in business class with the available amenities, and I love how easy it is to access all of them. You get climate control, directional air vents, remote control for the sliding doors, as well as the sunroof. You also get retractable sun blinds, which is always handy, as well as tray tables, although you can't use them while you're driving. The The storage in this row includes 6 cup holders, one of which has a heat and cooling function, as well as a couple of map pockets. There are 3 USB-A ports, as well as a USB-C port and a 220-volt AC power point. This is one of the few third rows that actually accommodates for adults. There's ample head and leg room back here, and I really love that you get a wide armrest, as well as lots of amenities. You get directional air vents, 4 cup holders, and 2 USB-A ports. The seat is on the firmer side compared to the rest of the seats in the cabin, but it's a comfortable spot to be in. The only problem is access is a little bit fiddly. You can move the middle seat and the front seat forward and make a walkthrough, but again, you wouldn't want to be doing that every single time. It's much easier just to shimmy through the narrow middle opening. When all the rows are in use, you get up to 280 litres of capacity, which isn't all that large for a people mover, but is enough for the odd grocery top up or school run. It does jump up significantly when you stow this third row to 1500 litres, but it's something to consider if you're expecting to travel with 7 people and all their gear, because with that third row stored, you only get a 4-seater in this. The lower loading height makes it really easy to get things in and out of this car, but it does have quite a significant lip, which means it's not super comfortable to sit in when you want to tailgate at a sports match or picnic. It has a small underfloor storage area that houses the tire repair kit, and you get a powered tailgate in this model. Both grades for the M8 share the same plug-in hybrid powertrain, which combines a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine with a single electric motor. And together they produce up to 274 kilowatts of power and 630 Nm of torque, which is massive on paper, but surprisingly that only gets you from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in a slowish 8.8 seconds. And once that battery depletes, those outputs drop down to 140 kilowatts and 320 Newton meters. This front wheel drive has a 2-speed automatic transmission, and at the time of this video is not rated to tow. The M8 has a Type 2 CCS charging port which accepts up to 6.6 kilowatts on AC power and up to 39 kilowatts on fast DC power. It's actually really good that you can hook it up to a DC charger because that's not always the case for a plug-in hybrid. And on that type of charger, you can go from 0 to 80% in around 30 minutes. For a plug-in hybrid, it has a largish 25.57 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery and an electric-only driving range of up to 106 kilometers. With its claimed combined fuel cycle usage of 6.1 litres per 100 kilometers and 56-litre fuel tank, that gives it an overall driving range of over 1,000 kilometers, which is excellent. Like any plug-in hybrid, you're going to get the best efficiency if you top it up regularly, and my average has hovered around 6.2 litres, which I'm really stoked over. Around town, this feels like it's got a decent amount of power. It's pretty quiet unless you're going up a hill, which I'm doing right now, in which case, once that EV power sort of switches out and you go straight just to the plain engine, it's a bit underwhelming to be sure, and you really feel the weight of this vehicle. And I don't know if you can hear that through the camera, but it is loud. The steering is responsive, but it does feel a little bit light, maybe a bit vague feeling when you're hitting bends, and that's probably the only time that it really loses that feeling of being solidly planted on the road. It's definitely not as dynamic as something like the Kia Carnival, but it will definitely suffice for everyday driving. I am surprised by how decent the visibility is, especially out the front and the sides, because this is quite a big car and you would expect there to be a few more blind spots. But I haven't really felt like there's anything really noticeable from my driving position. And in fact, it's a really commanding view out the front. One thing I will mention though is that the bonnet goes on for days. It is genuinely massive and it can be a bit tricky to gauge where the car starts. I do like that you can turn on the camera system when you're doing low speed maneuvers. That's really handy, but it's the biggest bonnet. The cabin is fairly quiet in this when you're around town, like I said, in that EV power mode. Acoustically, it's pretty good on the open road when you're not going up a hill, when you're just cruising. I actually felt like I could really chat with the middle row fairly easily. But once you switch over to that engine power and you lose that EV help, it does get a little bit loud in here. The ground clearance is 143 millimeters in this, so it's really easy to scrape the nose when you're going over a speed hump or you're nosing into a car spot and it has one of those little cement boulders. Another thing to mention is that this is over 5.2 meters long, so it does fill up a car space. It's not too hard to park because it's got a good 360-degree view camera system, but be aware. The M8 hasn't been tested with ANCAP and is unrated, but it does have a good suite of safety equipment, including 7 airbags, where the curtain airbags cover all 3 rows, and unique to this class is a rear windshield airbag. However, you do miss out on a front center airbag. I do like that you get sound and driver's seat vibration alerts for certain systems, like the driver attention monitor, blind spot monitor, and as well as collision alerts, which I found to be a really good addition. But the adaptive cruise control is not very well calibrated. But the full specs are in my detailed written review at carsguide.com.au if you need more info. The M8 is offered with a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty and complimentary 5 years roadside assistance, which is good for the class. Service pricing hasn't been finalised yet, but the service intervals are well spaced at every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, whichever occurs first. However, the servicing network is pretty tiny with only 10 centres nationwide. You can carry out authorised repairs though with places like my car. The GAC M8 Luxury is a people mover that carves out a very specific niche, largely in part to its plug-in hybrid powertrain and price point. It's undeniably well specified and luxurious inside, but it never escapes its chauffeur-like identity because it's all about the passengers in this one, not the person behind the wheel. Being a new brand to our market does limit its ownership benefits, at least for now, but where the M8 really shines is the efficiency, and that's why it gets the score that's on your screen now. But if you're after more details, check out my full written review at carsguide.com.au, and I'll see you on the next one.